Well, hey, friends and family, it is Tuesday afternoon, and as I was just saying to Pastor Brian a moment ago, it's been a few weeks since we've done this. We've had a little bit of things going on. Brian was on vacation for a couple of weeks. I was on vacation for a couple of weeks, and it takes a little bit of time to catch up with some of those things, and so we've missed you. Actually had somebody on Sunday ask me if they missed the podcast. They thought maybe we recorded it and didn't invite them, but
Hey, someone missed us. That's always nice.
that's great. I know. I was thrilled. I'm like, wait, that somebody's watching. That's awesome. I'm so excited. So, if you are watching, we're glad that you're watching. We are going to talk about both weeks of the conviction series this week, and dig into that just a little bit more in the book of Daniel, or at least the first half of the book of Daniel with Pastor Brian. How you doing, Pastor Brian?
I think I'm doing good. I just decided that I wasn't even going to fake it today. Usually when I do these podcasts, I'm working off site that day, like you are, and I work from my home office, and I throw on like a button-up shirt or something like that, just over the t-shirt I've been wearing during the day. But I was like, hey, we've been in this quarantine life long enough. This is the true me. Usually when I'm wearing a Cleveland Cavaliers t-shirt. So, maybe get some inspiration from that. Who knows?
It's like the picture of the guy eating Cheetos laying on the couch on a work thing. So it's kind of like that, right? So cool. Yeah, I just feel weird if I'm not wearing a button up when I go to work. I don't know. That's just
Well,
me.
there you go.
So
There you go.
but, hey, cool. So we both mentioned there a moment ago. We both had a little bit of vacation time over the last couple of weeks. Before we jump into the content of the conviction series, what is your favorite vacation spot or vacation activity?
If we went spot, it's just usually anywhere near water. I would say that, preferably an ocean water instead of a lake water, but I'll take ocean. And I know this is going to sound really weird because my favorite vacation activity, Jim,
I
is
think I know what you're going to say.
making zero decisions.
Oh.
Zero decisions. My wife knows that I make decisions all the time. I don't have any problem with making them, but when we go on vacation, I actively rebel against making decisions. I'll plan the whole thing. I'll set all the restaurants we can go to, all the place. I'll give it to her, and I'm like, I'll do all the upfront work. But man, once we pull into wherever we're going to be, I am not going to make a decision. If the decision has to be made by me, we're not going anywhere. So my favorite activity is making zero decisions. That's it.
I was going to say, don't you have a 30-minute nap requirement every day when you're on vacation?
Yeah, on vacation, I also do need a 30-minute nap every time. Yeah,
that's what I thought you were going to say. I was gonna put some money on the nap being your favorite vacation thing. So, but
yeah, that's a constitutional mandate in our family. That's required. So.
That's cool. Well, hey, we just wrapped up the conviction series. If you've missed a week of that, or maybe a couple of weeks of that, you can catch up on YouTube or in the app, podcast, wherever it is that you get streaming CFC audio. But let's talk about that a little bit. And so I want to start off with a question that you asked both weeks of the series to the audience. What area of your life do you feel like it's difficult to live from conviction?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm trying to remember over and over again is I don't have to attend every fight I'm invited to. And I think one of the things that this has been revealed in our culture for some period of time is how everyone feels really, really free to disparage other people or to say some things that may be much more opinion-based and fact-based or those sort of things. And I have an internal wiring that needs to be changed a lot. And that is that I feel like if I see something that's unjust, or if all of a sudden that I see someone saying something, that sort of thing, that I've got to hop into it. And many times when I hop into it, I don't necessarily reflect the way God wants me to reflect. And so what it looks like for me in those scenarios with people to live from conviction means asking Jesus, God, do you want me to hop into this conversation that I've been invited into? Or do you not want me to hop in? How do you want me to respond? That sort of thing. Because I think even in Christianity, we have this difficult challenge that many times when we communicate the truth, the manner in which we communicate the truth is not a manner in which Jesus would have communicated the truth. There's ways to communicate truth exactly how the Holy Spirit wants to. And sometimes I struggle with that. We've said this before, that, the truth is good, but we prefer that you don't wrap it around a brick and throw it through the window of someone's soul. And there's a whole lot of window smashing, soul smashing going on right now amongst other Christians. And it really, really burdens me. It's one of the reasons the First Peter 2 verse is there, living proper lives among unbelievers, especially if I see people online. And I wonder, as you hear people talking back and forth, the way that they talk, and they say that they're believers, I wonder how many unbelieving friends they have that are looking at their Instagram feed or their Twitter feed or their social media on Facebook feed or whatever it may be and go, that doesn't seem to line up, right?
Yeah.
In some ways. And so that for me, I want to make sure that's one of the hardest ways for me to line up, just not internally, but in every aspect of my life, the way Jesus wants me to live with my mouth.
Yeah, and that's a challenging thing to think through, especially in our social media world where it is so easy to throw a comment, throw a brick, so to speak, at somebody. You know, it used to be that we would do that just in the car on our way to and from work, but we didn't have social media to engage in. Now it feels like that's kind of our life a lot of times,
Yeah,
24/7. So yeah.
exactly.
So, what you talked a little bit about opportunities. What opportunities has COVID-19 or the racial tension that we've been dealing with, still kind of dealing with in some areas of the country, and lesser in some areas, maybe some other 2020 issues that we've been facing? What of those issues um, has that brought to you for your convictions to be revealed? Sorry, I got tongue tied there for a moment.
That's right. We just spent last week in Daniel chapter 6, right? And actually in Daniel chapter 1 and Daniel chapter 6, there was some significant tension that Daniel had to deal with. If he lived the way God wanted to live, it could have some difficult problems in Daniel chapter 1. He may not get promoted. An outside chance he could have been killed, right? Daniel chapter 6, it was a pretty high probability if he was going to get thrown in the lion's den, he was going to get killed based upon non-miraculous things happening. And I think that during this time, one of the things that it is brought to the forefront about living from conviction is where do we get our security from? Especially when the world is acting a particular way, or we feel like speaking or not speaking, and those sort of things. And we make all these considerations behind if I do this or don't do this. Are we making those considerations based upon how God asks us to live, or are there other things that are coming in front of God? And whenever anything comes before God, the really simple answer of it scripturally, it's an idol, right? Any place that we get our security from other than God is an idol. And we tend to have this tendency, I think, we think of idols as really, really bad things. But it's just anything that comes before God. I mean, our family can be idols if they come before God. Our jobs, which are good things, can be idols if they come before God. Our neighborhood, there's a whole list of things that can happen. That can come before God. And so I think in this time more than anything, it's really drawn out our opportunity to see where we're putting our trust. And every single person that I know during COVID-19, during the breakout that we're seeing in the protest and the racism, and I don't ever want to say protest and racism and sound dismissive when I say that. That's a
Right.
very significant thing. And I don't want to seem like I'm just passing it off by saying that. But in every case, it has come down to this one thing. In the midst of that thing that's pushing on us, where do we put our trust? Ultimately, is it in God? And then if we put our trust in God, will we live and act from conviction the way He's called us to live and act in the midst of that situation?
Yeah. I think a lot of times when we think about idols, we think of little wooden statues on shelves in our offices or for instance, if we had something like that in our room, I think that's what we tend to think about. But our political views, our perception of right and wrong can all become idols in that way. So, throw out a little plug for what's coming up this weekend on Sunday night, since we're kind of on the edge of that. If you're local to Loudoun County, what's happening Sunday night here at Idle?
Yeah, you can go to onechurchloudon.com or go to the front of our website, cfcwired.org, and then click on that and find out information as Christian Fellowship Church, as well about 20 other churches here in Loudoun County, are gathering together 6:30 p.m. this Sunday night, August the 9th at Idle Park. And it's really, if you were there the last time, it's really just designed to pray. So you can come and be a part of it. You can pray together with other believers. Social distancing will all be happening. If you need a mask, wear a mask if you're close to people. But it's designed to be 1 hour, 6:30 to 7:30. It's not designed to go really long, but it is designed for us to get together with other believers, the church at large here in Loudoun, and show the world John chapter 17 unity, that we can live in such a way, even in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of the breakouts of all the things that are happening, that we can live lives, such proper ones, that people ask about the hope that we have in us. That's another place in First Peter, but it's a good verse.
Yeah. So that is a local Loudoun County thing. So in case you're listening to us from someplace else, we don't think there'll be a streaming option. If there is, it'll be a last minute thing and not something we're advertising. But you can always check back Sunday night to see if we figured out some kind of a streaming option before the event goes down Sunday night. So how do you see God triumphing in the midst of what we consider maybe our greatest tragedies in 2020? Because I think most of us are are pretty used to the memes of how bad 2020 has been and what's August going to bring if June, July, and May and April have been such and such. How do you see the triumph of God in the midst of some of this tragedy?
And no pun intended when I say this, but hindsight is 2020. See what I did there? And I think that the farther we're going to get removed from this, the more that we're going to see what God is doing right now that we can't see. But I think some of the things that I'm seeing God triumphing right now is bringing back to the reminder of people that, number one, that we say that a church isn't a building, right? We can become people who speak a lot with words but don't do with our actions. So reminding people that the Church of God is, no matter whether or not we can gather together physically on Sunday the way that we want to or not, it's not going away, and Jesus is still doing work. I think that's a great example. I think it's really making us deal with some things that that otherwise we might want to ignore, maybe some latent racisms that we have. And it's given us time, right? As much as a lot of us want to get back to whatever the normal is, I think we're going to look back at some point and say, this is one of the few maybe times in our life that we had more time to do some things that we always said were important but couldn't get to, especially when we're talking about, I've had more meals with my family than I've ever had in a very long time. And that's a blessing. And so I think this is how we see God triumphing in many small ways. But then I think, if God doesn't return, Jesus doesn't return, and we're still here in 5-10 years or whatever, and we're having a conversation like this, I believe our hindsight back to this moment, we're really going to see some things that we don't even know it's happening, that God is planting the seeds. I think he's planting the seeds for more unity among churches. I think he's planting the seeds for, if we allow more spiritual growth. But a little bit of what we're going to talk about as we move into this next series next week is, in order for a lot of this stuff to happen from the changes going along, we have to allow God to reveal that, the difficult and the hard things that we're struggling with in our life, so then he can reform it.
There you go. Yeah, I was saying that to my wife. We were walking up to our neighborhood pool the other night, and I said, do you think, as we look back at those pictures from the early 1900s and we saw people wearing masks and we thought, man, that looks really foreign. It doesn't look so foreign now, and that we're kind of living it. And so I wonder what that'll look like in 20 years. Anecdotally, it was kind of interesting on Sunday. So we always ask in the live chats if, where people are checking in from on Sunday morning. And we had somebody in the chat say, they were checking in from Brambleton, which is awesome. We're used to our local folks checking in. But somebody right below that said, I'm checking in from Oregon. And so that's, kind of cool that, we've had that ability before, but I don't think that's been a reality for a lot of churches, and so it's great for us to be able to have an opportunity to impact somebody maybe on the West Coast that we didn't before. So you mentioned next week. Where are we going with our series next week?
Yeah, the title of it is called This Changes Things. And the reality of it is that change can be a very disconcerting thing in all our life. One of the things that I'm reminded of, and I'll mention on Sunday, so if you see it right now in the chat, you still got to tune in on Sunday or come physically, but there's this old statement, right, that nobody likes change. I don't agree with that statement at all. Actually, I would rather say it this way. No one likes change that's forced upon them. We like change that we initiate, right, because we're in charge. But in the midst of change that's being forced on all of us is very disconcerting, and it creates some issues. One of them, and we're going to start out here, is some expectations. Some expectations we have about God and what we think he's supposed to do, Jesus, what we think he's supposed to do. And especially when those expectations are not met, what do we do with that? Well, what I think the key to this series is this, is that allowing change to reveal things in our heart that Jesus wants to reform. Because what I've said is, we don't recognize what's happening in us while the world is changing around us, Jesus will never be able to do through us what he wants to do. So that's a quick little Cliff Notes version for those old school people, or Wikipedia page version for some of the younger ones, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and this upcoming series will be a little bit different for us, and it's a character study, which is kind of cool. We're looking at some different personalities that turn up in the New Testament as we go through. And so that'll be kind of a fun thing. So we look forward to seeing you this weekend. You can catch us live if you want to join us in the building. If you're local in Loudoun County and want to come and worship with us, we'd love for you to do that at 9:30 at our new building, 44505 Atwater. Or we'll be streaming right here where you're watching us now at 9:30 and 11. We'd love for you to come be a part of a Sunday morning here or wherever it is that you are. But we hope that you have a good rest of your Tuesday. Brian, have a good rest of your Tuesday, and go. Are the Cavs? The Cavs are playing basketball now?
No, they weren't good enough to make it. But, I'm still going to support my team.
There you go. So. That's fine. I'm disconnected from the NBA. I'm just happy baseball's back. So. So, all right. Well, hey, have a good day, everybody, and we will see you